Listen, when your boss shows up at your apartment at 5 in the morning with tears running down her face, you know something big is about to happen. But I had no idea just how much my life was about to flip upside down. Let me take you back to that night, because the story starts in the dark, in the quiet, in a moment I'll never forget. The sound came at exactly 5:03 a.m., not a soft tap or a polite knock, 3 hard bangs that cut through the silence like a knife. I shot up in bed, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. For a few seconds, I just sat there in the darkness, every muscle in my body tight and ready. Nothing good ever happens at 5 in the morning. That's what I kept thinking as I threw off my blankets and stumbled toward the door. I live alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Portland. It's nothing fancy, just a place I can afford on my accountant's salary. The second bedroom is basically a storage room, full of boxes I've never unpacked. After my engagement fell apart 3 years ago, I'd learned to like the quiet. No drama, no surprises, just me and my routine. So when someone started banging on my door before the sun was even up, my first thought was that something terrible had happened. The knocking came again, harder this time, more desperate. "I'm coming," I called out, my voice rough with sleep. I was wearing nothing but an old t-shirt and sweatpants, my hair sticking up in every direction. Through the peephole, I could see a figure in the dim hallway, but I couldn't make out who it was. The lighting in our building has always been terrible, especially on the 3rd floor. "Who is it?" I asked through the door, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. Every part of me was screaming to be careful. This was Portland, sure, but my neighborhood wasn't exactly the safest place in the city. Strange visitors at 5 a.m. usually meant trouble. There was a pause, and then a voice I knew, though I'd never heard it sound like this. Shaky, broken, barely holding together. "It's Adriana." My brain completely stopped working. Adriana, as in Adriana Castellano, as in my boss, as in the CEO of the entire company I work for, the woman whose signature appears on my paychecks, the woman who runs board meetings like a general commanding an army. That Adriana was standing outside my door at 5 in the morning. I unlocked the door and pulled it open. What I saw made me forget about the time, the strangeness, everything. The woman standing in my hallway looked nothing like the powerful executive I saw at the office. Her red hair, usually styled perfectly, was pulled into a messy bun that was falling apart on one side. Dark streaks of mascara ran down her cheeks. But it was her eyes that really got me. Those sharp brown eyes that could look at a financial report and spot a problem in seconds. Those eyes that made people nervous when she walked into a room. They looked empty, lost, like she'd been crying for hours and had finally run out of tears. "Adriana," I said, too shocked to remember to call her Miss Castellano like I did at work. "What happened? Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just stared at me, and I realized she was taking in my appearance. My messy hair, my wrinkled t-shirt, the warm glow of the lamp I'd left on in my living room. Her eyes moved past me to the inside of my apartment, landing on the photos hanging on my wall. Pictures of me and my brother from years ago, a shot of the Oregon coast I'd taken on a rare vacation. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can I come in?" Every logical part of my brain started shouting warnings. This was my boss, my CEO, a woman so far above me in the company that our normal interactions consisted of quick nods in the hallway and the occasional company-wide email. Inviting her into my home at 5 in the morning was insane, could lead to awkward questions, HR meetings, maybe even losing my job. What if someone saw her coming in? What if this was some kind of test? But looking at her face, at the raw pain in her eyes, I couldn't say no. Something in me, some part that had nothing to do with logic or career moves, made me step aside and hold the door open wider. "Of course," I said quietly. "Come in." Adriana walked past me, and I caught the smell of expensive perfume mixed with something else. Alcohol, maybe wine or champagne. She moved into my living room with careful steps, so different from the confident way she walked through the office. She stopped in the center of my small space, looking around like she'd landed on a different planet. My furniture was all secondhand, but clean. The walls had photos and a couple of posters instead of expensive art. A basket of clean laundry sat on the couch because I'd fallen asleep before putting it away. I closed the door softly and followed her, suddenly very aware of how small my apartment must seem to someone who probably lived in one of those glass penthouses downtown. "I'm sorry," Adriana said suddenly, turning to face me. "I shouldn't be here. I don't know what I was thinking. This is completely inappropriate. I should go." She took a step toward the door, but I moved into her path without thinking. "Adriana, wait." I kept my voice gentle, the same tone I used to use when my ex-fiancé would come home upset from work. "You came here for a reason. Whatever it is, you don't have to leave. Just talk to me." She stared at me, and for a moment I thought she might bolt anyway. Then something in her seemed to break. Her shoulders sagged. The expensive heels slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. "I had a date tonight," she said, and then she laughed. It was a horrible sound, bitter and broken. God, that sounds so stupid when I say it out loud. I'm 43 years old and I'm crying about a bad date like some teenager. "Sit down," I said, gesturing toward the couch. "Please, let me make some coffee." To my surprise, she listened. Adriana Castellano, who gave orders to 300 employees, who made decisions worth millions of dollars, sat down on my second-hand couch like I'd asked her to. She perched on the edge of the cushion, her back straight even now, like she couldn't quite let go of being in control. I moved into my small kitchen, grateful for something to do with my hands. Through the open doorway, I could see her sitting there with her hands in her hands. The coffee machine was old and loud, filling the silence with familiar sounds. I'd bought it at a thrift store when I first moved into this apartment, right after everything fell apart with Jennifer, my ex-fiancée. She'd left because she said I had no ambition, that I was content being average while she wanted more from life. 3 years later, I still used the same cheap coffee maker and lived in the same modest apartment. Maybe she'd been right about me. "How do you take it?" I called out softly. "Black, 2 sugars," Adriana answered, her voice steadier now. I brought 2 mugs back to the living room and handed her one, then sat down in the armchair across from the couch. Not too close, not presuming anything, just there. Adriana wrapped both hands around the mug like she was cold, even though it was a mild night. She took a sip and closed her eyes. "This is good coffee," she said quietly. "Grocery store brand," I replied, "nothing fancy." She opened her eyes and looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt something shift in the air between us. "His name was Gregory Hamilton," she said suddenly, "VP at some investment firm. We met at a charity event 3 months ago, right after my divorce was finalized. He seemed nice, charming, asked me to dinner. I stayed quiet, just listening. Sometimes that's what people need most. We went to this French restaurant downtown, the kind that requires reservations months in advance. He picked it to impress me, I think." She took another sip of coffee. "He spent the entire dinner talking about himself, his portfolio, his connections in the city, his opinions on which tech companies were worth watching." Every single time I tried to add something to the conversation, he'd nod and smile, then just keep talking like I was a painting on the wall. Nice to look at, but not really there. I could picture it perfectly. Some guy in an expensive suit thinking he was impressing this successful woman while completely missing the point of actually getting to know her. Then, over dessert, he leaned in close. Adriana's voice got quieter. He said, "Adriana, I really admire ambitious women. It's attractive. It really is. But a man still needs to feel like a man. You know what I mean?" And I said, I didn't know what he meant. So he explained that in our relationship, maybe we could agree that he'd handle the big decisions and I could handle everything else. You know, so I didn't have to worry so much about important things. My jaw tightened. He didn't. He did. She smiled, but there was no humor in it. And do you know what I did? I didn't throw my wine in his face. I didn't make a scene. I very calmly set down my fork, told him our evening was over, insisted on paying for my own meal, and walked out. Very professional, very controlled, just like always. "Good for you," I said, and I meant it. "Is it?" Adriana's eyes were shining with tears again, because I sat in my car outside that restaurant for almost half an hour, and all I could think was that Gregory is the 5th man this year who's made me feel like I'm too much, too successful, too opinionated, too independent, too everything. Her voice cracked. My ex-husband used to say the same thing, that I cared more about work than about our marriage, that I was married to the company, not to him. And maybe he was right. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I've built this whole life, this whole company, and lost everything that actually matters along the way. "That's not true," I said firmly. "How would you know?" The words came out sharp, defensive. She looked away immediately. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that." "It's okay," I told her. "You're upset. I get it." I leaned forward in my chair. But for what it's worth, anyone who makes you feel like you're too much is really just saying you're more than they can handle. That's their problem, not yours. Adriana looked back at me, and I saw something flicker in her expression. Surprise, maybe? Or recognition. "How do you do that?" she asked quietly. "Do what?" "Say the right thing. You've been doing it since I got here. No judgment, no weirdness, just steady and calm, like this is completely normal." I shrugged, feeling uncomfortable with the praise. "I don't know. I guess I just try to treat people like people, you know? Not like positions or titles or whatever, just people who are doing their best and sometimes having a bad day." Tell me about you, Adriana said suddenly, sitting up straighter. I know you work in accounting. I know you've been at the company for 4 years, but I don't actually know anything about you as a person. Tell me something real. It felt like a deflection, a way to shift focus away from her own pain. But I also sensed that she genuinely wanted to know. What do you want to know? Everything. Anything. Start with why you're here. Why you're living alone in this apartment, working as an accountant, when you have an engineering degree from a good school. I was surprised she knew about my background. You looked at my file? I look at everyone's file, she admitted. But yours stuck with me. You had all this potential. Then you just stopped climbing. Why? I took a deep breath. I was engaged 3 years ago. Her name was Jennifer. We mined college, stayed together after graduation. I was working at a tech startup. Long hours, but good money and a chance to move up fast. Jennifer loved it at first. She liked telling people her fiancé was going to be successful. I paused. The old pain still there, but duller now. But the job was eating me alive. I was working 80-hour weeks, never home, stressed all the time. So I quit and took the position at your company. Stable hours, decent pay, actual work-life balance. I thought Jennifer would understand. She didn't, Adriana said softly. She gave me back the ring 2 weeks later, said she couldn't marry someone with no ambition, someone who was content being average. She wanted someone who wanted more from life. I smiled sadly. The funny thing is, I did want more, just not the same more she wanted. I wanted time to breathe, time to have a life outside of work, time to figure out who I was when I wasn't exhausted and stressed. That's not a lack of ambition, Adriana said. That's self-awareness. That's knowing what matters to you. Maybe, or maybe she was right, and I'm just making excuses for giving up. I looked down at my coffee mug. Either way, I've been here ever since. Same apartment, same job, same routine. It's not exciting, but it's mine. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Then Adriana spoke again, and her voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear her. That's why I came here tonight. Well, one of the reasons. My heart started beating faster. What do you mean? She set down her coffee mug with deliberate care, like she was buying time to find the right words. I didn't just drive around aimlessly after that terrible date. I went home first, to my empty apartment with its perfect furniture and its perfect view and its perfect everything. And I stood there in the dark and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt happy. Really happy. Not just satisfied with a good quarterly report or a successful deal. Actually happy. Adriana, let me finish, please. She looked at me with those intense eyes. I started thinking about the office, about the people there, and I realized something. You're the only person in that entire building who treats me like a human being. Everyone else sees the CEO. They see power and decisions and someone who can make or break their careers. But you hold the elevator door for me. You say good morning and actually mean it. Last month when I was working late, you stopped on your way out and asked if I was okay. Do you remember that? I did remember. It had been a Thursday night and I'd been rushing to get home. But I'd seen her through the glass walls of her office, alone at her desk. And she looked so tired that I couldn't just walk past. I remember. No one else asked. No one else even noticed. Her voice broke slightly. And I went home that night and I thought about you. About how you probably had plans with friends or hobbies or whatever normal people do when they're not working. And I was jealous. I was jealous of an accountant making a fraction of what I make. Because you seemed to have something I'd lost somewhere along the way. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? Adriana stood up suddenly, and I rose with her, uncertain. We were only a few feet apart now, close enough that I could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the vulnerability written all over her face. I'm saying, I looked up your address in the employee database, which sounds completely creepy now that I'm saying it out loud, but I needed to see what it looked like. A life that made sense. A life where someone chose things that actually mattered instead of just chasing success. I'm not sure my life is the best example, I said carefully. You're the only person at that company who sees me as a person, not a position, Adriana continued, the words coming faster now, like water through a broken dam. Everyone else is afraid of me, or wants something from me, or just sees the title. But you've always just been kind. And after tonight, after that horrible date and sitting in my empty apartment, I realized you were the only person I wanted to talk to.
The only person who might understand. I didn't know what to say. This was my boss, my CEO, standing in my living room at 5:30 in the morning, telling me things that felt too big and too honest and too dangerous. But I also couldn't deny the way my heart was racing, the way something in me had woken up the moment I'd opened the door and seen her standing there.
I think I said slowly that you've had a really hard night and you're questioning a lot of things right now, and I get that. I really do. But in the morning? In the morning, I'll still feel this way, she interrupted. I know you don't believe me. Why would you? But I'm not confused. I'm clearer right now than I've been in years. She reached out slowly, giving me time to move away, and placed her hand on my chest. Her palm was warm through my thin t-shirt. I could feel my heart hammering against her touch. I can feel your heart racing, she whispered. So maybe I'm not the only one feeling something here. She wasn't wrong. I could feel it too. This pull between us that didn't make any logical sense, but felt real anyway. Standing there in my small living room with the sun just starting to lighten the sky outside, everything felt different, possible, terrifying. The confession hung between us like smoke. I couldn't wave away. My heart hammered so hard I thought she could hear it. I wanted to say yes, to grab this chance with both hands, but fear gripped me tight. This wasn't just any woman standing close to me at dawn. This was Adriana Castellano, my boss, the person who could fire me with a phone call, the woman who existed in a world so far above mine we might as well be on different planets. I feel something too, I admitted, my voice barely steady. But I'm terrified. Adriana, you're my CEO. If this goes wrong, I don't just lose someone I care about. I lose my job, my income, everything I've built to feel secure after my engagement fell apart. I can't afford to be reckless. Her face fell, but she nodded slowly. So what do we do? Because I can't pretend I don't feel this. We're careful, I said. We don't figure this out at 5 in the morning when you're hurting and I'm half asleep, and we're both too raw to think straight. We take time. We're smart about it. She closed her eyes, and a tear rolled down her cheek. I came here hoping you'd tell me I was crazy. That would have been easier. I know. I reached for her hand without thinking, but I've never been good at easy. We sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, this fragile new thing between us barely formed, but already feeling impossible to ignore. Then she took a shaky breath and stood up. I should go before I say anything else I can't take back. I walked her to the door, watching as she slipped those expensive heels back on. She looked taller, more put together, but still fragile in a way that made my chest ache. On Monday, at the office, we'll be professional, I assured her. I don't want that. The words came out fierce. I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. Then we won't, I said simply. But we also can't figure out what it means in a hallway or conference room, so we take our time. We're careful. We think about what we're doing before we do it. She searched my face, then nodded. Okay, careful. I can do careful. I watched until the elevator doors closed, then leaned against my door, heart still racing. The apartment felt different now. Her coffee mug still sat on my table. The faint scent of her perfume lingered. Monday morning arrived with typical gray drizzle. I got to work 13 minutes early like always, booted up my computer and tried to focus on spreadsheets. But my mind kept drifting to Adriana. Would she regret what she'd said? Would things be outward between us? 10:15, my calendar notification buzzed. All hands meeting. 10:30, main conference room, mandatory attendance. The room was packed when I arrived. I found a spot near the back, gravel to blend into the crowd. At exactly 10:30, Adriana walked in. She was perfect again. Navy suit, hair twisted up elegantly, makeup flawless. Nothing about her suggested a woman who'd shown up at an employee's apartment crying about a bad date. But I saw things others didn't. The faint shadows under her eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. The way her hands gripped the podium edge a little too tight. The tiny pause before she smiled at everyone. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice clear and strong. I'll keep this brief. Whitmore Analytics has been approached by Meridian Tech with an acquisition offer. Whispers rippled through the room. Meridian Tech was huge. An acquisition would change everything. Before anyone panics, Adriana continued, raising one hand. No decisions have been made. The board and I are carefully evaluating the offer, but any deal would include protections for employees. Your jobs would be secure, your benefits would be maintained or improved. She fielded questions with practiced ease, giving enough information to satisfy without overpromising. I watched her work the room and felt something twist inside me. This was Adriana in her element. Confident, commanding, brilliant. And Saturday morning, she'd stood in my living room and told me she was tired of being alone. When the meeting ended, I hung back, uncertain whether to catch her eye or slip away unnoticed. Garrett Hayes. Her voice cut through the chatter. She was still at the podium gathering notes, but her eyes locked on mine. Could you stay for a moment? I have a question about the quarterly projections. It was reasonable, professional, but I saw the truth in her eyes. The room emptied, the door clicked shut. Suddenly, we were alone. Adriana didn't move from behind the podium. I didn't approach. The space between us felt charged. How are you? She asked quietly. I should be asking you that, I replied. That was a big announcement. I am fine. Busy. But that's not why I asked you to stay. She paused. I meant what I said Saturday morning. I know you need time. I know this is complicated, but pretending nothing happening isn't going to work for me. What do you want me to say, Adriana? I want you to tell me if I'm alone in this. Her voice cracked slightly. I want to know if you felt even a fraction of what I felt when you held my hand. Because if I'm making this up, if this is all one-sided, I need to know so I can move on. This was the moment, the crossroads. I could lie, be safe, tell her Saturday morning was a fluke, that I'd been confused. But I'd never been good at lying to people who mattered. You're not alone, I said quietly. I felt it too. Her breath caught. Then why are we standing on opposite sides of this room? Because I'm terrified. Because you just announced a potential acquisition and your life's about to get more complicated, and mine is about making sure I can pay rent and keep my head down. We exist in completely different worlds, so we build a bridge, she said simply. People do it all the time. I wanted to believe her, but I had learned the hard way that wanting something wasn't enough. I need to think, I said finally. This isn't a decision I can make standing in a conference room on a Monday morning. Pain flickered across her face, but she nodded. Okay, think. Take all the time you need. She moved toward the door, but my voice stopped her. Adriana. She turned back. For what it's worth, I wish I was braver. Understanding softened her expression. I'm not your ex, Garrett. I'm not going to walk away because you're not ambitious enough or wealthy enough or anything enough. I see you, the real you. And that's exactly who I want. After she left, I stood alone in that empty conference room for 5 full minutes trying to catch my breath. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about her question. Why were we standing on opposite sides of the room? Fear, obviously. But was fear a good enough reason to walk away from something that felt this right? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It's Adriana. I got your number from HR. I know that's probably inappropriate, but I've stopped caring about appropriate where you're concerned. Can we talk? Not at the office. Somewhere neutral, please. I stared at the screen for a full minute. I should say no. I should maintain boundaries. My fingers typed before my brain could stop them. When the response came within seconds. Friday night, 7? There's a coffee shop on Morrison Street called Grindstone. Do you know it? I did. It was quiet, tucked away, the kind of place where you could have a real conversation. I'll be there. Thank you, Garrett. Friday took forever to arrive. I checked the clock every 10 minutes, watching hours crawl by.
At 6:45, I pulled up outside Grindstone. Through the window, I could see Adriana already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. She'd beaten me here. Of course she had. I took a deep breath and walked inside. She looked up as I approached, and the raw vulnerability on her face stopped me in my tracks. This wasn't the CEO. This was just a woman, scared and hoping and trying not to show either. Hi, she said softly. Hi. I slid into the chair across from her. You got me coffee, I remembered. Black, 1 sugar? She pushed the cup toward me. I figured if we're going to have this conversation, we should at least be caffeinated. I took a sip. It was perfect. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop hummed with quiet conversation around us, normal sounds of normal life happening while I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, about needing to be careful. And you're right. You're absolutely right to be cautious. My heart sank. This was it. She was going to be reasonable. We were going to acknowledge this was impossible and go back to being boss and employee and nothing more. But I've also been thinking, she continued, about all the ways I've played it safe in my life. I built a company by taking calculated risks. But in my personal life, I've been a coward. I chose work over my marriage every single time because work was safer. Work made sense. Work wouldn't leave me. Adriana, let me finish, please. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. I'm 43 years old. My divorce was finalized 3 months ago.
In those 3 months, do you know how many real dates I've been on? 4. 4 dates, and every single one was with someone who wanted the idea of me, but not the reality. Someone who wanted the successful CEO they could show off, but couldn't handle the actual person underneath. I stayed quiet, letting her speak. And then you opened your door at 5 in the morning, she said, her voice breaking slightly. And you didn't judge me. You didn't try to fix me. You just saw me. The real me. The one who's lonely and scared and tired of pretending she has it all figured out. That's because I don't have it figured out either, I admitted. I'm barely holding things together most days. You're doing better than you think. She leaned forward. Garrett, I've watched you. I know that sounds creepy, but I don't mean it like that. I mean, I've noticed things. The way you always make time to talk to people in the break room, even when you're clearly rushing. The way you volunteer to help with company events, even though it's not in your job description. The way you're kind without expecting anything in return. That's integrity. That's knowing what matters and living accordingly. Do you have any idea how rare that is? She paused. I respect you. I respected you before I liked you. And I think that's why this feels different. Why I'm willing to risk making a fool of myself. My chest felt tight. You're not making a fool of yourself. Then what am I doing? Because I asked you here to tell you that I can't stop thinking about you, and that terrifies me, and I don't know what to do with it. The honesty in her words cut through every defense I'd built. I could lie, I could deflect, or I could match her bravery with my own. I can't stop thinking about you either, I said quietly. It's been driving me crazy. I'll be working on a spreadsheet and suddenly I'm remembering something you said, or I'll see you in the hallway and my whole day gets better, and that scares the hell out of me because I've already had one person walk away when I wasn't enough for them. I'm not her, Adriana said firmly. Your ex left because she wanted something you couldn't give her, some fantasy version of success. But I've had that version of success, and it's empty. What I want is something real, someone real. So what do? I asked. We try. She reached across the table and took my hand. We take it slow, like you said. We're careful, but we try because I think what we could have is worth the risk. I looked at our joined hands, at her face full of hope and fear, and made my decision. Okay, I said, let's try. Her smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. Really? Really? But we set boundaries. We're careful at work. We don't rush this. And if at any point it's not working, we're honest about it. I can do that. She squeezed my hand. When can I see you again? Tomorrow. The word came out before I could think about it. We could do something normal. Get dinner maybe. Like actual people on an actual date. I'd love that. We talked for another hour, trading questions and answers, learning the small details that don't fit on resumes. She told me she was an only child who'd always wanted siblings. I told her about my brother in Denver, who I barely spoke to anymore. She admitted she'd never been camping. I confessed I taught myself to cook from YouTube videos. When we finally left, I walked her to her car. Every instinct screamed to kiss her goodbye, to do something to acknowledge the shift between us. But we'd agreed to go slowly, and slow meant restraint. Good night, Adriana. Good night, Garrett. I made it to my car before I looked back. She was still standing there, watching me, her expression so full of hope it made my breath catch. Saturday night, I picked her up at 7. She'd given me her address, and when I pulled up to the building, I tried not to let my jaw drop. The lobby alone probably cost more than I made in a year. But when she came down, she was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose, looking nothing like a CEO, and everything like someone I could fall completely in love with. We went to a small Italian place I knew. Nothing fancy, just good food and quiet atmosphere. She ordered pasta and asked me about my life before the company, before my failed engagement. I told her about growing up in a small town, about my dad who worked construction and my mom who taught second grade, about how I'd moved to the city thinking I'd conquer the world, only to discover I was happier with a steady job and a simple life. There's nothing wrong with that, she said firmly. Society acts like ambition is the only virtue, but contentment is just as valuable, maybe more valuable. Tell that to my ex, I said, then winced. Sorry, I shouldn't bring her up. It's okay, she's part of your story. Adriana set down her fork. Can I ask what happened? I took a breath. We met in college, actually. Different majors, but we crossed paths freshman year and just clicked. She was in marketing, always ambitious. I was studying engineering, planning to work in tech. For a while after graduation, it worked. I got a job at a startup, good money, and a chance to move up fast. Jennifer loved it at first. She liked telling people her fiancé was going to be successful. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Then she started getting frustrated that I wasn't more ambitious, that I was content with my role instead of pushing for management. But the job was eating me alive. 80-hour weeks, never home, stressed all the time. So I quit and took the position at your company. Stable hours, decent pay, actual work-life balance. I thought Jennifer would understand. So she left. She gave me back the ring 2 weeks later, told me I was wasting my potential, that I was settling for mediocrity.
The word stung even years later, and maybe she was right. Maybe I am settling. You're not settling, Adriana said fiercely. You're living authentically. You know what makes you happy, and you're brave enough to choose it instead of chasing what other people think you should want. That's not settling. That's wisdom. Something in my chest loosened. How do you do that? Do what? Say exactly what I need to hear. She smiled. Maybe because I need to hear it too. The months that followed were careful and deliberate. We saw each other outside of work. Coffee dates, dinners, walks through the city. At the office, we maintained professional boundaries, though I'd catch her eye across a room and feel my heart skip. Nobody suspected anything. We were just boss and employee, nothing more.
But away from work, we were becoming something I'd never expected. Adriana opened up about her marriage, about how she'd lost herself in building the company. I told her more about Jennifer, about the fear of not being enough. We talked about everything, our childhoods, our dreams, our regrets. 3 months after that first coffee shop conversation, Adriana made a decision that shocked everyone at work. She announced she was stepping down as CEO. The acquisition with Meridian Tech had gone through, and while she could have stayed on in a leadership role, she chose to leave entirely. I'm starting my own consulting business, she told me over dinner the night before her announcement went public. Helping small businesses with their financial strategy. It's something I've always wanted to do, but never had the courage to try. That's amazing, I said, and I meant it. But are you sure? I'm sure. She reached across the table and took my hand. I've spent 20 years building someone else's definition of success. Now I want to build my own, and part of that is being able to have a real relationship with you without worrying about workplace dynamics or conflicts of interest. My heart stuttered. Adriana? I want this, Garrett. I want us. And I'm tired of being careful. That night, for the first time, I kissed her. Standing outside my apartment building with the streetlights casting shadows and the city humming around us, I finally let myself be brave. When I pulled back, she was smiling, tears in her eyes. Took you long enough, she whispered. I wanted to get it right. It was perfect. After she officially left the company, everything changed. We didn't have to hide anymore. We could be seen together, could acknowledge what we were becoming. I met her friends, other business owners, people from her charity boards. She met my brother when he visited from Denver, and they got along better than I'd hoped. 6 months after our first date, Adriana asked if she could move some things into my apartment. Just a few things, she said. A drawer, maybe some closet space. I know it's small, but I spend most nights here anyway. I gave her half my closet and cleared out 2 drawers. Within a month, it was obvious she'd moved in completely. Her expensive coffee maker sat next to my thrift store one. Her business books lined my shelves. Her presence filled every corner of my small apartment, and I loved it. One Tuesday evening in April, I was standing in my kitchen watching Adriana try to make toast. She'd burned it 3 times already, and the frustration on her face was adorable. She was wearing one of my old shirts, her hair pulled back with a clip, completely focused on this simple task she couldn't master. That's when the words came out. Marry me, Adriana. She froze completely, the pan still in her hands, water running in the sink. For a second, I thought maybe I'd made a huge mistake. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe she wasn't ready for that kind of commitment after her divorce. But then she turned around and I saw tears streaming down her face. What did you just say? She whispered. I said, marry me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I don't have a ring. I hadn't planned this. But I was watching you burn toast and complain about it, and I realized I want to watch you burn toast for the rest of my life. I want all of it. The good days, the bad days, the boring Tuesday evenings. I want you, Adriana, forever. She dropped the pan in the sink with a loud clang. Yes. Oh my God, yes. Absolutely yes. We kissed right there in my kitchen, with burnt toast smell still hanging in the air. And it felt perfect. Not like a movie proposal with fancy restaurants and planned speeches. Just us being real, choosing each other in the middle of ordinary life. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Adriana wanted to tell everyone immediately. I wanted to wait until we had a ring, but she refused. I'm not waiting to celebrate this, she said firmly. So we called our families, told our friends, and announced it. My brother actually cried when I told him, which made me tear up too. Even my colleagues at work, my former colleagues who'd worked under Adriana, congratulated us genuinely. Planning the wedding was simpler than I expected. Neither of us wanted anything huge or fancy. Adriana had done the big wedding thing with her first marriage, and it hadn't saved that relationship. I want small, she told me one evening while we looked at venues online. I want the people who actually matter to us. No show, no pretending, just honest celebration.
We picked a botanical garden for early June. Adriana loved the idea of being surrounded by growing things, new life everywhere. We invited 40 people total, close friends, family who'd actually stayed in touch, colleagues who'd become real friends over the years. My brother flew in from Denver, and having him there meant more to me than I could put into words. My friend Rebecca helped Adriana find a dress. Nothing traditional or overdone, just something that made her feel beautiful. I went with a simple suit. We spent more time writing our vows than planning anything else about the wedding. Adriana would sit at our kitchen table with a notebook, crossing things out and rewriting them over and over. "What are you trying to say?" I asked her one night. "That you saved me," she said quietly. "But that sounds dramatic and not quite right. You didn't save me. You showed me I could save myself, that I didn't have to be CEO Adriana all the time, that being just Adriana was enough." I understood exactly what she meant. Write exactly that. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Not too hot, clear skies, gentle breeze. I stood at the front of the garden with the officiant, watching guests arrive and take their seats. Then the music started, and Adriana appeared at the far end of the path. She looked stunning. Her dress was simple and elegant, her hair styled but not overdone, and she was smiling so wide I could see it from 50 feet away. But what got me was the way she looked at me, like I was the only person in the entire world, like nothing else mattered except getting to where I stood. When she reached me, she grabbed both my hands immediately. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," I whispered back, already fighting tears. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. I remember bits and pieces. The officiant talking about partnership and choice, Rebecca dabbing at her eyes in the front row, my brother giving me a thumbs up. But mostly I remember Adriana's face as we said our vows. I went first, my voice shaking slightly. "Adriana, you knocked on my door at 5 in the morning, and I opened it without knowing my life was about to become something I never imagined possible. You taught me that playing it safe isn't the same as being happy. You showed me that real love requires courage, requires risk, requires showing up even when it's scary. I promise to love you, support your dreams, share my life completely with you, and never take for granted the gift of your trust. You're my partner, my love, my home. Thank you for choosing me." Adriana was already crying when she began speaking. I spent so many years building walls around myself, convincing myself they were keeping me safe. Then I met you, and you didn't try to break down those walls. You just gently showed me there was a door, and I could open it whenever I was ready. You've given me more than love. You've given me permission to be human, to mess up, to not have all the answers. You've shown me that success isn't about titles or money. It's about having someone to laugh with on Tuesday evenings, and someone who still loves you when you burn the toast. I promise to show up every day, even when it's hard. I promise to build a life with you that's full of honesty and joy, and those 5 in the morning conversations where we figure out who we're becoming. Thank you for taking a chance on a woman who showed up at your door crying. Thank you for seeing me. The reception was small and intimate. We danced to a song Adriana had chosen, ate good food, and spent the evening surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us.
When it was over, we went back to our apartment, the same small 2-bedroom where this had all started, and fell asleep wrapped around each other, exhausted and happy. 6 months after our wedding, something happened that brought everything full circle. I woke up at exactly 5 in the morning to knocking on our bedroom door. Not the apartment door, our bedroom door. I sat up, confused and still half asleep, and Adriana wasn't beside me in bed. "Come in," I called out, my voice rough with sleep. The door opened, and there she stood in her robe, holding 2 cups of coffee, wearing the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "Good morning, husband." "What are you doing?" I asked, but I was smiling too. "Why did you knock on our own bedroom door at 5 in the morning?" She came in and sat on the edge of the bed, handing me one of the coffee cups, because exactly 1 year ago today, I knocked on your door at 5 in the morning, and you opened it. That knock changed my entire life. I wanted to commemorate it somehow, to remind us both of where we started. I pulled her close, coffee and all. "You're ridiculous. I love you so much." "I love you too." She settled against me, careful not to spill the coffee. "Do you remember what you were thinking when you opened the door that morning?" Honestly, I was terrified. I thought something terrible had happened. Then I saw it was you, and I was even more terrified, because my boss was crying on my doorstep at 5 in the morning, and I had no idea what to do. Adriana laughed. "And yet you let me in anyway. You made me coffee, you listened without judging, you treated me like a person instead of a title. You were a person who needed help. That's all I saw." She was quiet for a moment, just breathing beside me. "I've been thinking a lot lately about how different my life is now compared to a year ago. Back then, I was so lost. My divorce was fresh.
I was pouring everything into a company that was about to be sold, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt genuinely happy. Now look at me. I'm sitting in bed with my husband, drinking coffee at 5 in the morning, and I'm actually excited about the day ahead. Tell me about what you're excited about, I said, because I loved hearing her talk about her consulting business. Her whole face lit up. I have a meeting today with a woman who's trying to start a catering business, but has no idea how to handle the financial side. I get to help her figure it out. That's what I do now. I help people build their dreams instead of just building my own empire. It's so much better. I kissed the top of her head. You're amazing. You know that, right? I'm figuring it out. She paused. Actually, there's something else I wanted to tell you. That's part of why I did the whole dramatic 5 in the morning knock thing. My heart skipped a beat. What is it? Nothing bad, I promise. She turned to look at me directly. I've been thinking about us, about our future. We've talked about buying a house, maybe getting a dog, but I want to know what you really want, not what you think I want to hear. What do you actually dream about when you think about our life together? It was such an Adriana question, direct and honest and cutting right to the heart of things. I want us to keep growing together. I want to travel more, see places we've never been. I want to wake up next to you when we're old and still feel this grateful. I want to build something lasting, not just material stuff, but a real partnership that weathers whatever comes. And yeah, I want the house and the dog and maybe even kids someday, if you're open to that. She sucked in a breath. Kids? I know you didn't have them in your first marriage because of timing and career focus, but if you wanted to revisit that conversation, I'd be open to it. No pressure, though. I'm happy with just us two. Adriana set her coffee cup on the nightstand and took mine to do the same. Then she turned fully toward me. I've been scared to bring that up. I'm 44 years old. The window is closing, maybe already closed, and I didn't want you to feel like I was pressuring you into something huge. Talk to me. What do you actually want? I think I want to try, she said slowly. Not right now, maybe not for another year, but I want the option. I want to see if it's possible. I spent so many years telling myself I didn't need that kind of life, that career success was enough. But you've shown me there's room for both, that I don't have to choose. I pulled her into a proper hug. Then we'll explore it. No promises about outcomes, but we can try. We stayed like that for a while, just holding each other as the room gradually got lighter with approaching dawn. Eventually, Adriana pulled back and reached into her robe pocket. I have something for you, an anniversary gift for our unconventional anniversary. She handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a framed photo, the two of us at our wedding, caught in a moment of pure joy, both laughing at something someone had said. Below the photo was an engraving, the family we choose, the love we build, the door we open. Adriana, I breathed, feeling tears prick my eyes. I wanted you to have something that captured what we've created, not some perfect posed shot, but this moment when we were just us, being happy and real. I set the frame carefully on my nightstand, where I'd see it every morning. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not, she said with a laugh. I still burn toast regularly. I forget to return calls. I sometimes get too focused on work projects and ignore everything else. You're perfect for me, I corrected. That's what matters. We eventually got up and started our day. Adriana had her meeting with the aspiring caterer. I had my usual work at the firm. I'd actually gotten promoted to senior accountant recently, something I never thought I'd pursue until Adriana encouraged me to go for it. We'd fallen into a rhythm where we both worked hard at our respective careers, but never at the expense of our relationship. We had date nights every Friday, we cooked together most evenings, we talked about everything and nothing. That night, after we'd both finished work and had dinner, we sat on our couch with our coffee. We'd become coffee people together, constantly brewing new cups throughout the day. Adriana had her feet tucked under my leg, her usual position when we relaxed. I was thinking, she said suddenly, about what you said this morning about traveling more. What if we actually did it? What if we planned a big trip for next year, somewhere neither of us has been? Where would you want to go? Italy maybe, or Japan? Somewhere we can just explore and be tourists and not think about work or responsibilities for a couple weeks. I loved seeing this side of her, the side that wanted adventure and spontaneity. Let's do it. Pick a place and we'll start planning. She turned to me with that smile that still made my heart race. How did I get so lucky? I showed up at your door broken and desperate, and somehow you saw something worth staying for. I saw you, Adriana, just you. Not the CEO, not the powerful businesswoman, not the divorcee trying to rebuild.
just a person who needed someone to listen. And then I kept seeing you, all the parts of you, the brilliant mind, the generous heart, the woman who tries so hard at cooking, even though she's terrible at it. Hey, she swatted my arm, but she was laughing. The woman who knocked on my door didn't turn my life upside down, I said seriously. She made it infinitely better. She made it make sense. Everything before you was just existing. Everything after is actually living. Adriana wiped at her eyes. You're going to make me cry again. Good tears, though, right? The best tears. She leaned over and kissed me softly. Thank you for opening the door. Thank you for every single day since then. Thank you for choosing me. Always. I promised. Every single day, I choose you. As we sat there together in our home, planning futures and remembering pasts, I thought about that desperate knock 18 months ago. How terrified I'd been. How uncertain everything felt.
How impossible it seemed that my boss showing up crying could lead to anything good. But here we were, married, happy, building a real life together. She was running her own consulting firm, helping other women build their businesses. I was advancing in my career with her support. We were talking about houses and trips and maybe even kids. We were living instead of just surviving. Sometimes life knocks on your door at 5 in the morning when you least expect it. Sometimes opening that door is the scariest thing you can do. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to answer, you find everything you never knew you were missing. The CEO who knocked on my door after her divorce didn't just turn my life upside down. She turned it right side up for the first time.